Hello, everyone. Thank you all so very much for watching and tuning in to Trekker's Delight. We have an exciting episode full of jeers.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
ready for it. Before we get started,
Like this one was so bad I have lemonade, not actual bourbon.
not worth the whiskey. What's going on, sir?
Hello.
We literally went live about 30 seconds ago. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, what's happening, everybody? My name is Jason McCammon, fellow Trekkie with all of you. Nothing special about me. Just a guy. That's it. Just
Fair
a
enough.
man.
Okay. All
Just a
right.
man watching TV.
Fair enough.
And to the queen.
Oh,
Introduce yourself.
hello, hello. I am currently sans tiara, but I've got to fix that in my life. I really do. I need more crowns. Um, anyway, hi. I'm Marie Brownhill. I am here, obviously, on Trekker's Delight, and you can find me on Game Industry News. And I guess in following on with Jason, I'm just a woman who watches a lot of TV.
And
I
as
don't even
always,
watch that much TV anymore, but I do take the time to watch some Star Trek when it's on.
well, good.
Hi, Marco.
It's good to have you with us. It's been a minute, maybe about 2 weeks since we've had you on the live show. So,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
so it's great to have you back. All right, so let's get started. Let's get started with this quick recap of the episode.
Oh, I think
This is a recap of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Episode 6, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. While making a visit to the Magellan system, the Enterprise comes to the rescue of a Magellan shuttle under attack by a larger ship from a nearby alien colony. Successfully fending off the attackers crash into the planet and its crew escapes. The shuttle's passengers are being moved to the Enterprise for their protection. Among them is Alora, with whom Pike had known over a decade ago, and she is joined by a young boy and his father. The boy is the first servant of Magellan, who is a genius and will ascend to the throne soon. The father makes a special note of letting us know that he is only his father biologically, which gives us a hint into the remainder of the storyline. Gamal, his father, is one of the first servant's educators. Later, while on the planet with Alora, Pike and Alora notice one of the guards has betrayed his sacred oath to protect the first servant. He offers that he is working with the colony to kidnap him. This is after a fight scene. The guard grabs Alora and holds a knife to her neck. Thinking fast, Alora saves herself, but ends up killing the traitorous guard. This leads to a romantic scene between Alora and Pike. We are treated with Pike's gleaming and glistening muscles, not to be outdone from the previous episode when Spock bore his chest in a muck. Spock, is this prime time or something? I don't know. Meanwhile, Gamal is in sickbay with Dr. Mbinga. Mbinga learns that the Magellans have superior medical technology which allows them to cure diseases. It could possibly hold the cure for his own daughter. However, the Magellans are forbidden from sharing their medical techniques with outsiders unless there's a political alliance between them. Mbinga informs us that the Prime Directive allows for an exchange of technology in medical situations. In a subplot to the subplot, La'an orders Uhura to dig through files to help them understand what's really going on. This gives the clue that it might be connected to Alora because the language is so specific that it matches Alora's language too closely. Gamal attempts to leave the ship with the first servant, but is stopped by Pike while on the transporter. The first servant was kidnapped from the ship only for Spock to find that he hadn't really left the ship, but was really inside a container on the Enterprise. The first servant pled his case to Pike to allow him to go back to the planet so that he could fulfill his ceremonial obligations. The reluctant Pike allows him to. Alora informs Pike that because he has saved the life of the first servant, he is allowed to witness the ceremony. It is in that moment that both Pike and the first servant realize his life is what he is offering to his society. The first servant will be connected to a machine and suffering his entire life so that society's floating city won't fall into the boiling lava below. We also learn the alien colony isn't alien at all, but a group of Magellan exiles who are against the way Magellans continue to permit the exploitative outrage that is the first servant. Y'all, in my excitement to get this started, I didn't play the intro.
You did not.
We'll just sing it. We'll do it a cappella.
Not it.
You got to know it by now.
Not it.
There are no words. There are no words. There are no words. So let's do this in honor of William, who no doubt is going to watch this at some point. Let's play this intro.
What's up, Trekkies? It's your boy Will Walford here with Trekker's Delight, a Star Trek-inspired podcast. Before we get started, we're going to give away $100, so make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our channel where we will announce the lucky winner every single week. Now, welcome to Trekker's Delight.
Yo.
I feel like we've now appeased William. Well, I would actually argue that it's not just cool visuals. I would also argue that it's a whole lot of hot mess writing too. On top of that.
Well, look. So we were talking. We were talking without Jason. So Jason he doesn't know what we were talking about. Let's get Jason's take on this episode before.
Fair enough. I was actually answering the comment that popped up. That's all.
I mean, I think it ended horribly. I don't mean that as being like a bad writing thing, but like it reminded me of that I don't know if you watched Stargate episode where they had the kids and had to take pieces of the kid and put it throughout the society or whatever, and the kid ended up being one of those slow kids. Anyway, yeah, I felt like what they had to do to this child to maintain the society was not only horrible, it was unnecessary, since they obviously know a lot of spacefaring people, the whole Federation. So it's kind of like, ooh, kind of a hurt.
This is why I say it's bad writing. This is why. Because I'm like, wait a minute. You are so technologically advanced that you can pull a Bones McCoy in the Federation sickbay and call it an abattoir, which, nice word, by the way. Come on, go you. And you can't figure out a way to fix the machine that keeps you levitating so that it doesn't require somebody to sacrifice?
They didn't really explain what the machine was. I think it would have been nicer if they said, was it a sentient being that was doing it, that they had to feed?
It's not even, it's not even that. It's like Pike literally is looking at Alora doing exactly that, right? Like he says, I need you to explain this to me. I really do, and I need you to make me understand. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. I got nothing. That
was the worst part. I'm sorry. I was waiting to just talk about that. That was the worst part. It's just the fact that this advanced society, at this point, scientifically, they're more advanced than the Federation. And so you mean to tell me that you don't even know why you're doing what you're doing? I mean, well, they know why, but it's like you don't know the mechanics behind it.
They know the big picture. They know the big picture, but they don't know the small details.
Makes no sense.
No, Jason, I'm going to argue that knowing why your machine requires that somebody plug a kid into it to die is not a small thing. I really feel like that's inherently important to know.
I don't mean it by small. I mean like intricate, like the details of how it works and why. But I mean, I agree with you.
So another point, like, why can't you just leave your planet? Why can't you just leave your planet?
A couple of them did.
Why would you just stay there? It makes no sense. It makes
I
sense.
mean, even beyond that, there's, this, I am so angry with Alora over this, right? Because there's a moment when she says, yeah, when I met you, that is what I was trying to do. Like, I was trying to, my research was focused on, like, not killing kids. And at no point do we find out, like, what made her give that up. But at some point, apparently, she was just like, yeah, fuck it. It's just so much easier to plug that kid
Yeah,
in.
she was just kind of like, deal with it, homie. Like either you're playing the game, or you're not playing the game. This the game right here.
Yeah, right? I mean, she's like, it's not my kid, so whatever.
Right. And he's like, does he suffer? She's like, yeah, probably.
And she's like,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And she's like, and she says, and then she says this in this entire context of, we don't turn away from the suffering. And I'm like, except you literally lock this mofo in the Golden Throne, which is a 40K reference, like in your basement. And then what? Like,
and you find out that's why his biological father was trying to kidnap him and move him.
So one thing that I did think was interesting, it was towards the end when she was trying to compare her society to Federation society, and she was just like, "Hey, look, do you think that what happens in the Federation is better or worse than what we're doing? We're doing this to one kid."
I have thoughts.
But the question there for me was, I had always thought that the Federation had basically given a damn about all of their citizens, and so it made me wonder, what's really going on in the Federation? He had no retort. He had no comeback whatsoever.
Well, first of all, it was wrong. First of all, it was wrong. It was wrong. Earth in that time period is much more of a utopia than us here and now. She's kind of speaking on where we live.
Yes.
She's talking to the audience. She technically can't be talking to Pike because life supposedly is a lot better. But it begs one question. To quote a Vulcan, does the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few?
Right. I mean, so yes, Star Trek very much embraces a utilitarian, capital U, view of the world. And, in a certain sense, yes, this concept of the first servant is the purest expression of that. But what's interesting about, I think, the Federation concept of the needs of the many is that it is not in service of the needs of the many to base your society on the suffering of an individual.
Right.
Is how I would argue that one. And what ultimately Alora is saying, and what the Magellans apparently believe, is that it is utterly necessary for society to function that you suffer. And what pisses me off about this is that, as Jason said, this isn't dealing with the Federation, right? Like, this is not. The Federation is literally held up as a utopia. Like, that is the whole point.
Yes, at least Earth is. Maybe not every Federation planet, but at least Earth has gotten to this point of balance.
Exactly. Exactly.
Which is why he should have had a response to that.
But he didn't, because the writers are, and this is why I say that the writing's a hot mess, because the writers are talking to us. Yes. But the other problem with this is, by the way, if we are going to assume that we need to take responsibility for the suffering of others, which I think we should, and I'm down with that, guys. Like, I am, but like, you can't. They know, right? Like, the Magellans know that what's going on is wrong. Like, it's clear that they know, right? Because Alora is cagey about this thing the entire episode, y'all. Like, she is cagey as
she
shit.
Can't wait. She can't wait. Today's the day.
She very deliberately doesn't say anything, because she knows that Pike's going to lose his mind, because they have an idea of who the Federation is.
And she's not sad about it. So
no, so you can't sit there and be like, we're holding this up as a bad example, as a way not to be, and then turn around and basically be like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They know it's not a way to be. They know it's wrong. And I'm over here like, Could you make this? I mean, seriously, could you make this make sense?
Oh,
And
man.
and it's even worse because we never actually get to meet the colonists from Prospect 7 that are trying so hard to save the first servant. It would have been so much better. I mean, the theme would have been so much better developed had we had the opportunity to see the other side. And also my other frustration with this, and I got a lot. Y'all, I'm mad. I'm mad. I'm hot. And it's not just because it's, like 88 degrees in my office right now. But I'm sorry. Why do we have to watch Pike get led around by his dick in this episode?
Well, yeah.
They had literally spent
Well,
episodes.
it reminded me of a lot of Star Trek episodes, especially with like Kirk or whatever. It actually reminded me of like episodes with Harry Kim and Geordi LaForge, where they're just pawning over this woman, regardless of what's happening, around them. Like Geordi was like, "Oh, what's that woman's name? Acriel." It's probably the name of the episode.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
no,
I loved it.
It was
I
the name
loved
of the
it.
episode, and that is creepy as fuck.
She couldn't have did it. She couldn't have did it.
So first off, let's have a conversation about that, because the difference between having Harry Kim do this and Geordi LaForge do this is because they're not the captain. LaForge, like, first off, Harry Kim is played as if he's a child throughout the entire run of Voyager, which I think is a disservice to Harry Kim.
Yep.
1. 2, Geordi's love life is this clusterfuck like of a thing, because Berman and the rest of the writers couldn't figure out a way, shockingly, to have a black man have a healthy relationship. And LeVar Burton's come out and talk about it. Like, other characters and other actors have come out and talked about it, because clearly the characters aren't talking, and I'm so mad I can't even speak, y'all. So that was that mess. But Strange New Worlds and even Discovery before this sets up Pike as a competent captain. And
Right.
he also quotes Starfleet regulations saying, they fired on us, we've got to investigate. And literally all we do is we go down to the wreckage and we don't try to find, and we don't try to, even when you just thought it was a random alien group, like, we don't go out and say, yeah, maybe we should bring this up and be like, yo, what up? Maybe don't do that. Like,
They didn't try to find where they were or anything. It was like, oh, nobody's here. Guess they left.
I mean, I gotta tell you, Manny, I am 150% behind Anson Mount shirtless. So, like, that's fine. That's fine. And I'm also not saying that Pike can't get laid either, because I think that's, I think we are now at a point where we can tell Trek stories with more adult themes than we could in the 90s. But, like, seriously, like, I was like, is Pike just thinking with the wrong head? Like, is his brain starving for blood because it's all somewhere else?
Yeah.
The
I
entire
thought
time,
too.
clearly.
Seriously, I'm just like, did you leave your brain in your other shirt? Like, what the hell, man? What the hell? And I'm like, sure, yes, definitely attractive. But Starfleet regulate? Oh.
So
I'm trying to figure out. Sorry, go ahead.
No, like, I was just gonna comment. Like, this had to have been a situation where Anson Mount was just like, okay, he took his shirt off twice. I've got to take mine off at least once. Got to.
Hey, maybe
Like, that
everybody
had to
had
have
their
been the
shirt off
situation.
at some point.
And Marie and I, we were talking about this prior to. Now I cannot. It seemed like the beginning of this episode was going to be like some kind of statement about January 6th and what happened there, and then all of a sudden, boom, it went in a different direction. It almost leads me to believe that it was going to be written one way, and then all of a sudden they were like, nah, there's going to be too political. Let's stay away from that and let's go in a different direction.
Yeah, and it's just totally flipped.
Too political for this version of Star Trek, though? Like, I gotta tell you, Discovery has been willing to pull on its big girl britches and take on all kinds of things, from the MAGAT movement to xenophobia to all of that nonsense, right? Like, and I can't
imagine. Discovery has Strange New Worlds.
I was about to say, Strange New
Worlds
Worlds
is still new.
Either.
Still new. Maybe it's still finding its legs. How is Pike's hair still looking good though after all that boom booming they did? So I'm
Pomade, man. Pomade.
wondering.
Also, I will say one of the things I really loved about that sequence is like you can very definitely hear Anson Mount's native Tennessee accent come out.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you listen for it, I'm like, no.
I'm thinking about shit like this, like the geography of the planet. All right, so apparently they need to do this to this kid to sustain where they lived. How big is this area? Are they living in a caldera? Are they living in a volcano? Are they living? Can they live somewhere else on the planet? Are there other
Apparently
people on the
not.
planet
It's all lava.
that are opposed to this and are throwing rocks at them all the time? Like, how
So-
is this?
So then
planet-
the obvious question is, did they start off on that planet, and if they did, like how did they evolve to be who and what they are, or did they come from some other place and they were transplanted there for for whatever reason and said, this is the only way that we can survive here.
Probably
That whole thing reminded me a lot of the Cloudminders in the original series.
Mhm.
And I kind of wonder if that wasn't a purposeful illusion that they were making, just sort of as a nod, because one of the things that happens in the Cloudminders is it looks like one thing is going on, but it's really not. Interestingly enough, in the Cloudminders, the women get together and basically negotiate a way forward, and Chuck, Droxine, that's her name. Droxine's father's entire system, and they're like, yeah, no, we're going to make this better because this is wrong. This is not the way we should be. And that was in, the 60s. We're in 2022, and Pike leaves that planet with, both of his heads tucked between his legs. I'm not letting this go, y'all. I'm not letting this go.
No, I get it because I felt the same way watching the episode. It's just like I felt like his head suddenly shifted to the wrong place. For how long did you know this woman?
10 years,
long, right?
10 years.
Oh, 10
Really?
years ago.
But in that moment,
No.
10 years ago. 10
He
years
rescues
ago,
her in a random shuttle, hits on her, which also things that
Let's not say hit on her. Let's say flirted with her.
No, he legit says he was hitting on her.
Why
He
is
legit
it?
says it.
Why are
It
they
just
in the
sounds
shuttle?
weird.
Why are they in the shuttle in the first place? Why were they in the shuttle?
So apparently she flew too close to a pulsar because maybe she was trying to harness like the energy of whatever, I don't know, in order, like this was all part of her research into figuring out a way to, not kill kids.
Yeah, I mean,
Also not letting go of that.
Why was it like this kid needs to be euthanized tomorrow or everybody on the planet dies? Why is he off the planet?
Well,
is
I'm
everybody-
assuming that the previous first servant had recently died, which is why it was so urgent.
Sitting
for
in that chair,
him to-
guys. Sitting in that chair.
Yeah.
So my theory there is, so back in the early spacefaring, like the spacefaring days, right? Like when the Russians were ahead of us, they actually sent up a dog before we did.
Yeah. Underdog.
And one of the scientists took the dog home for one night, let his kids play with the dog, fed the dog like awesome stuff because he wanted the dog to have one good day because they were going to send that dog up in space with the full knowledge that Doggy wasn't coming back. If Doggy didn't die on the way up, they fully knew that Doggy was going to run out of air and suffocate to death. And that's what happened.
Miss you too, Manny.
Poor dog.
Miss you,
Oh, wow.
Manny. And that's what happened. And so, like, I sort of feel like this whole retreat business on the random moon is kind of like that. It's like your life from about the age of 9 on is going to be very short and it's going to suck. So we're going to try to make this part of it as pleasant as possible, right? Like as if that sort of it makes the whole system more palatable. Can we just not show that picture anymore? Can we just
I mean,
not
we've
do
got to. I mean,
No,
people have
no,
got to
because he's
know.
literally staring at me and I'm gonna cry. So don't do this to me. Don't do this to me.
Yeah, but a terrible, terrible thing that those people had to do. They didn't even kill him.
So
They didn't
speaking
even
of
kill him.
speaking, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying they didn't even kill him. They just made it so that he had to live a terrible existence for however how long that was gonna be.
I get the sense that they've already picked out first servant number 2.
Oh, no
yeah.
doubt.
Yeah, you notice that like Allura starts talking about the first servant with female pronouns by the end. Yeah, no, like this, they've already picked this chick and like are now probably carting her ass off to like Magellan Pajem.
She's eating ice cream and shit and playing with puppies and riding horses right now.
She's like, this is the best thing ever. I'm also deeply,
She
deeply
got an
bothered.
easy bake oven. She's just doing it.
Like, I'm also deeply, deeply bothered, speaking of the boy. And first off, I kind of wanted to scream at literally like low-key all the bridge crew. I'm like, this kid has no name and has forsworn his entire family. Y'all, this ain't a good sign.
Yeah.
Like, no good is going to come of this in any way. And nobody paid attention to that. But okay, whatever.
Well, I'm not going to say they didn't pay attention to it. Like they knew it, but at the same time, it's a different culture, so they can't. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I get it, but I fully expected more side eye from Una. I'm not gonna lie.
She did, and as soon as she saw it.
But there's a moment when Allura says he chooses this of his free will, and first off, he's not.
He didn't know. He didn't know what was going to happen. It was clear
So
he
what?
did not know what was going to happen.
Right.
Had no idea. So he's 9. We have no idea what's going on there. Also, he's not near the age of consent. Like, I mean, you cannot contract with minors. It's not binding on them because they don't have the ability
Correct.
to make the promise. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, and you've also indoctrinated this kid since, you dumped him on Magellan Pajem.
His free will based on what you told him.
To do. Like, this is not free will. This is not he's not choosing this. He's doing what y'all told him to do.
All right.
And you are literally sacrificing. And the symbolic weight of this is also irritating because, like, you are literally sacrificing the weakest and most vulnerable person in your society for your own future. Most societies agree that we have a responsibility to care for our children.
Speaking of caring for our children, a subplot to this particular episode is the fact that Dr. Mbinga learns of the medical technology of the Magellans, and it's a possibility that technology could save his daughter's life. How do we think this is going to play in the rest of this either season or series?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about this idea that he has his daughter saved in the transporter buffer, because even in the world of Star Trek, that's like a magical thing. Like, that's not like something people usually just choose to do or have the ability to do. Not saying it hasn't been done. Scotty did it, but when they found out he did it, they're like, "What? You did? Oh my God! How is this even possible?" You know what I mean? So the fact that Mbinga, who isn't even an engineer, just seems to willy-nilly do it to save his daughter, is just kind of weird that's part of the story, because it's not that easy. Second of all, how does he have this transporter that no engineers and technicians are allowed to touch on the Enterprise? Like, not in this episode, but the episode before, a couple episodes before, he's like, that his
thou shalt not.
Right.
Yeah.
His had never been touched.
You shall not pass.
His had never been upgraded or changed with the rest of the systems. It's like, how is that even possible?
Also, first off, the fact that Hemmer accepted it is amazing to me, because Hemmer doesn't strike me as the sort of person who's going to listen to literally anybody else ever.
Right. So I find that to be a problem.
But yeah, like, the Rakia business was weird. I think Jermaine is right. I think the Rukia business is in there because we're hinting at, developments that are going to happen further on down the line. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited for that because she's adorable. And I think we are going to come up with this because I feel like this is also kind of a nod to For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky and the Farini. Because the Farini, I really feel like there are a lot of allusions to old Trek that are built into this particular episode. Still doesn't make it not shitty, mind you.
Right. But to your question, Jermaine, I think they probably will end up saving her.
Yeah.
And, that she'll be, I don't know.
Do
She'll
we
be on the
think-
ship or she'll live with her mother? Who knows? Or maybe she'll die and then Mbenga will become this like ruthless character. That'd be nice.
I have reached my quota for dead kids in my Trek, y'all. I have reached my quota.
But if the father asked Pike, the Federation, to save his son, would they not have the right to do it then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or because it's a government, like you still can't overrule a whole government's decision.
Yeah, no.
Like you just can't ask the United States to save, like a Chinese person just can't come to the United States and tell us to save his Chinese kid.
So here's the deal. If Daddy applied for asylum with the Federation, what would happen is, and then for himself and his son, the son would protest. And at that point, that would trigger a hearing to determine whether or not the son has the right, is capable of making that decision. Because that's how that would work. And at that point, that would have been a brilliant stalling tactic because at that point, Majalis would have fallen into the lava.
Right.
And
but at this point that he's already in there.
And really, would that be a loss? Really, would it?
Come on now.
Cool shooting sticks.
I told you, I'm a little hot.
Clearly, I can tell. So,
it's such a hot mess. But I will say one of the things I do like, and I'm sorry to run over you, but I just have so many feels about this. I can't rein them in. Like, I just can't. I do like that Pike loses.
Expound.
Actually. So one of the things that I think is interesting about this episode is it brings up this question of how far does does Federation power extend, and how far does the Federation's right to impose its value systems on other cultures extend?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, the sound?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is the world's fattest cat trying to get in because I closed the door. And she's literally flinging herself at the door. And it's probably going to break it because, she's a bowling ball with feet.
I literally thought it was one of your kids playing.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad I didn't, because I've been known to watch some of the Strange New Worlds episodes with them, and I'm really glad I didn't do that with this one.
Yeah.
But going back to that again, so because of feelings too. Yes, Maddie feels hunger a lot. But having this whole conversation about they make a lot of points over and over and over again that, oh my God, Maddie, give me a second. I'm gonna go release the cat.
I'm just waiting to hear the door fly open and then the cat just yank her hair back and she just goes. You heard me at the door for 20 minutes. Am I nothing in this house? Am I nobody to you? Huh?
All right. So when I say she's a bowling ball with feet, look at the size of this cat.
That's a big cat.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, no. So anyway, the idea is they make that the Federation has no jurisdiction, right? So there's nothing they can do. They can't affect anything that's going on in Majalis, right? But if you're going to have a question, and if you're going to use this episode to pose that question, which I think they do, you can't have, again, you can't have the people whose value system the Federation is questioning also questioning their value system.
Well, no, because every society always has people that questions their own value system.
Right. But, I mean, for sure. But, like, the Federation is standing there going, no, frying children's brains is bad.
To us, that's our.
To
our
us.
morality.
And then, the Magellans are over here going, yeah, but no, this one, just the one, really.
Just one for all
it's
of us.
fine. It's just the one. And so it's cool that it's just the one, and we feel bad about it.
That they don't feel bad about
Except they do feel bad about it. They do feel bad about it. And they do know it's wrong, and they're doing it anyway. So if you want to throw this to a situation where we're asking how far can the Federation go with this,
I don't get the sense that
you
they feel
need
bad
to make
about it.
sure that at least the Federation is hitting up against something that these people believe.
I don't get the sense that they feel bad about it. I didn't get that sense at all.
I mean, no, I think
I got the sense they're like, well, it's just necessary. That's what we do.
I mean, she's literally standing there in the fucking sacred chamber, like 2 steps away from popping popcorn.
Right. That's what I mean. It's like she couldn't wait for it.
It's like, Schadenfreude makes the best butter sauce.
He's so silly. So look, another subplot in this particular episode was dealing with La'an and Uhura. And
I
so
was here for those.
And so what is very, very clear is that they really want to use that particular character, Uhura, because we see her in the last episode. She didn't really talk a lot, but we saw her. But in every other episode, she had a pretty significant role. And I guess my question to you all is, to what extent do we see this continuing to play itself out? And I also, I guess just another thought that kind of goes along with that is, I'm wondering whether or not they plan on extending the use of that character further in a potential show after Strange New Worlds.
Well, I think that they have taken a note from Discovery, and how I feel like in Discovery, a lot of people wanted to know about more people on the bridge, like especially like Bryce and Reese. And so I think number one, they're making a point not to do that. Plus, it's Uhura. They don't want to stick her definitely in the background. That's like the last person you want to stick in the background, because she is the most popular character on the show to this point. We've seen more of her than anybody. More than I'm talking about before Strange New Worlds came on. Well, I guess Pike was a whole season of Discovery, so that may be a different.
Yeah,
But
I was kind of like, I'm not sure where you're going with this. But
But I think I think that they're making it a point to make sure that they use her. I did think it was kind of funny how she just like blew up a ship. It was like, oops. and they didn't even really talk about it. They gave her a look, and then it was on. They weren't like, holy shit, are there any survivors? Like, they didn't scan.
I know, like nobody cared.
Nobody gave a fuck.
cared.
I was thinking about it. I was like, did she just blow the ship up?
Well, she didn't blow it up, but she damaged it tremendously.
She pretty much destroyed that ship.
Right. I mean, she's like, I meant to graze them.
They moved at the last second.
Right. I'm like, ooh, maybe, and like, I love it that Lon is like, maybe don't shoot things anymore. Like, and that's about it. And that also, but that didn't make any sense to me either, because they didn't look to see if there were survivors. They were like, yeah, we don't care.
Right. They
like,
looked at the
what?
wrecked ship, but they didn't. As soon as they blew it up, they didn't see who was. They didn't see if there was.
or even try to beam them up. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, beam them over.
Too many holes. Too many holes.
We did not. We gave zero fucks about these other people, because this is even before like Pike's penis was involved, right? Like, so we have. I'm not letting go. Just not. And apparently that's what Alora said too. But like, anyway.
Did you just kick her out?
Get out. Get out. Ooh. Ooh.
Too much.
too much. There is
You know what? For some reason, I don't even remember how it actually happened, but in my head, like, we're literally like when she made that killing blow. She remember the football game you played in high school. To me, she was. It was like, fuck, I missed.
I mean, you're like we're playing. We're playing diplomacy here, not Angry Birds. Uhura, stop.
Yeah, well, I don't think they should have had her do that in the first place. It's just kind of like you don't just let somebody. Hey, you think you push this button and you think you can accurately just take out their weapons? I think that was horrible to have her do that. It's not her job. It wasn't the right place for her to learn to shoot things. She didn't shoot the asteroids. She didn't shoot. She didn't go to a mine.
I'm going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, including Uhura, that like she's had tactical training and has had training on the phaser systems, because thus far Uhura has literally been badass at everything she's tried. So, on the one hand, it would be nice if she wasn't good at something, but on the other, I feel like that was literally just a
one-off.
This was just like a Charlie Foxtrot.
So part of the reason why I'm wondering whether or not this is like part of some type of strategy is because we know that James T. Kirk is going to be in season 2 of Strange New Worlds, right? And by the way,
speaking
we saw
of tall hair,
and so we see him. We also see Lieutenant Kyle at the transporter. We also know that spot, and so it's kind of like, okay, so once Strange New Worlds is over with, is there some type of continuity plan? Because they're making such a big deal about James T. Kirk in the first season when we're not going to see him until the second season, which is similar to what happened with Strange New Worlds. And so I'm wondering whether they're just kind of planting seeds.
Oh, I'm sure they have some idea what they're going to do with this.
I mean, considering that that's at this point Star Trek is their flagship property, I don't think there's an argument to be made that it isn't. For Paramount Plus, I feel like yes, there is definitely a plan about what we're going to do. Do I know that they're going to play in the sandbox? I honestly don't. I think it's really going to depend on the audience reaction to Kirk, like when he gets back on, because I mean, Spock was,
hard shoes to
a
fill.
roll of the dice in Discovery, like he really was. But there are a lot of folks that have a really unhealthy attachment to James T. Kirk.
Well, I liked Chris Pine did a decent job. I mean, they didn't write it the best, but I thought Chris Pine did a decent job as Captain Kirk.
Yeah, like and part of me, I really want to see where they're going to take that character, like that version of the character. But yeah.
But nobody can get like Kirk's actual mannerisms, and it would be wrong for you to try to copy that. The exact.
But I do love, but I really, really love that Ethan Peck has picked up the very idiosyncratic way that Leonard Nimoy pronounced censors.
Censors.
Mm-hmm.
Censors.
And I really appreciate that. That seems like that was a deliberate choice, and so I'm just like, yeah, that's cool.
He was a bit more calm this episode than he usually is. Sometimes I feel like he has too much strength in his words. I say this a lot. Like this, he's not that great of a spot to me. But
I am just going to.
I love it when Jason stays consistent. Jason hates what he hates and he loves what he loves, and that's it.
And there's no change, right? I will remind you though that Avery Brooks spent the entire first season of Deep Space Nine screaming.
Yeah,
it took him a while to calm down. So,
but he didn't have anything to go off of for his character. I mean, he was creating.
Yeah, but to be fair, he's going off of where the Spock and Where No Man Has Gone Before, who was also very screamy.
Is it? Do you think they told him to do that? Because the whole point of that pilot was that it wasn't right, so they
that was the cage.
Everything.
No, that was the cage.
Okay, right.
That was actually the Pike story.
You said Where No Man Has Gone Before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's when they go, and that's the Gary Mitchell, Elizabeth Denner, and the terrible contacts that almost blinded the two actors.
Well, yeah. Again, it's until they really figured out how he needed to be.
So I don't know. I mean, think he had like he was definitely a much calmer and much more modulated in terms of how he was speaking. I think everybody's settling in nicely. I've been pretty I've just been pretty pleased.
No doubt.
I'm loving Una, loving La'an.
So for me, when it comes to Spock, I'm not because it's a totally different person. It is 50 years later. I have no expectations that anybody is going to perform that character in the way that the original actor did it. I have absolutely no expectations on that whatsoever. The fact that they are able to, use some standard things that we've all pointed out, great, excellent. Go ahead with it. But I'm really looking for them to expand the character, every character, more than what we had seen in the past. Up till now,
they will.
up till now, with every episode that we've seen in Strange New Worlds, they've done an excellent job at character development. This episode, however, not.
I mean, other than we've now seen Pike's pecs.
Can you picture Pike's pecs?
I mean, seriously, and we've discovered that apparently, he was a Randy lieutenant, and is capable of lust. Like that's literally what we got out of this. I'm so mad about this. I'm still mad.
Can't wait till we see those Orion girls.
I mean, I am there with bells on for that too.
I'm gonna have to add that one back. Do you remember we used to have that one? The Orion girl.
I do. That
Were you here for that, Jason?
I don't know what you
No.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you didn't join us until Robin died.
Oh, it was after
What?
that. Yeah. It was right as that. It was right after it happened.
I think it was at the same time. He was just doing Section 31 though.
That might have been
And so
like
he was-
the
when
Orion
you
Slave Girl
announced
was
it.
definitely a Robin thing.
I think when you announced it, that was the first time I had actually seen you guys, and I don't even know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was depressing. I mean, on top
Yeah.
of the episode being about dead children.
He's not dead. He's just suffering.
Right. I mean, they literally plugged. I
Terrible.
mean, seriously, they plugged him into the Golden Throne, and I was just again.
It would- like,
Well,
it
what
would have been
happens to
better.
him? Well, we don't know.
It would have
What
been
do
better
you
if
mean
he
we
would have
don't
been dead.
know? Does nobody go down and check on this kid? Like,
We don't know. We just know he probably isn't liking it. That's all they can tell you.
there we go.
Hey, take
There
over
we
my ship, baby. Take over my ship, girl.
So we had, like those they're the two like amazing Trucker's Delight images, and one is the dancing Orion slave girls, and the other is sheer fucking hubris.
From Picard.
Yeah.
This,
Anyway.
Random thing though that I did kind of like. This is the second episode in a row where we've had almost a reaction or an allusion to challenge coins. Somebody in that writer's room has some military affiliation of some description or government. So the coins
Challenge coins.
So
okay.
So the coins, different like units will make them up, and you can actually swap them out with other people from other units or other organizations. And like there's a call where like somebody's like, hey, who's got a challenge coin? You throw down your challenge coin, and whoever's got like the highest ranking one doesn't have to buy drinks, and like whoever loses that ends up buying the round of drinks. And so as a result, you end up with like a really cool, like if you've done any sort of government or military service. It started with the Americans that did, and has expanded now. I think the British do it and the Australians do it, maybe even the Germans. And people just exchange them and have these huge collections of them. Robert's got general's coins. I've got Secret Service coins, FBI coins, stuff like that.
Marie with the random factoids. Love it.
I know. The more you know.
I don't even have Bitcoin anymore. I'm completely coinless.
I had to sell mine. I needed some cash real quick. I had to sell mine.
I had to sell mine too.
Oh, God.
I'm about
So
to buy
what are-
again.
So we've got 10 more minutes. Like, what else?
Yeah,
can we
and
cover?
I don't know. I don't. That's the thing. Like, should we end or do we just talk just because?
I mean, there is more to hate on in this episode. I'm sure there
Okay,
is.
what you got?
Well,
Like, what do I got? I did like the rules of security. I thought that was pretty hilarious.
Oh yeah.
I did like that a lot, and how
Yeah.
everybody just kind of like nods and goes, "Yeah, wait till rule 7,"
Mm-hmm.
because apparently
Mhm.
Lon has done this shit before.
Mm-hmm.
I also really liked Sam Kirk and his porn stash coming up and being like, "You should have her tell blah blah blah," and then Lon is like, "You could tell me that."
But I'm risk averse. I love
I'm
that.
conflict averse. That
I'm
was
conflict
amazing.
averse. Yeah, I loved it. I loved it because
You
clearly
were being
he's an
nearly
older
enough
brother,
out of
right?
this
Mhm.
He's an older brother, and that's what older brothers, older sisters. They're not here for that. They're trying to get through.
Right.
Yep, and he's just like, "Nope, you're on your own, peace."
Mm-hmm.
Right. I would like to see more out of. I really would like to see more out of Sam Kirk because he, like Pike, Sam is a character that we know. We know where he's going to go. We know what's going to happen to him, and when he dies. But there's a lot we don't know about him, and so like if we're going to take this in a direction, like he would be a fun character to do that with too. Going back to one of your questions earlier, which was, do we think we're going to see, development in this universe and in this time frame? Part of me really hopes not. And so the reason for that is I worry that Trek is going to fall into the trap that Star Wars has, which is apparently everybody is either a Palpatine, or a Skywalker, or somehow stuck on Tatooine. Because we've got a whole giant ass galaxy and like 3 planets in it.
I wish I watched it
been-
because I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
Oh,
But
really?
please
Oh,
continue.
okay.
But please continue.
So like Tatooine is where like Luke grew up, blah blah blah. It's the desert planet. And the Mandalorian goes back, but it's fine when Mando does it because it makes sense. But like we keep coming back to it. And then obviously with the rise of Skywalker, we got this whole like Rey's a Palpatine, and now she's a Skywalker because apparently there are only 2 families in the entire galaxy.
Right. I mean, there were Attack of the Clones. There were like 1,000 Jedi, but somehow everybody just seems to be these 2 lineages.
Right. Exactly. and I've been struggling through Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I've been just incredibly disappointed in that, because the issue is, why are we telling this particular story? Because again, this is the same sort of situation, right? Like where we know what happens to Obi-Wan Kenobi, we know what happens to Leia, we know what happens to most of these characters, we know what happens to Vader.
Well, because if it's a character you already know, people are more apt to watch it. I mean, Spock was in Discovery, so they wanted to watch it. If you did a show about Captain Kirk in Starfleet Academy, people would want to watch it. You know what I mean? So as long as you haven't told the whole story of their life, there's always a gap where you could like just say, "Oh, let's just talk about."
Yeah, we can fit something in there. We can get your
Obi-Wan
money that
Kenobi.
way.
Yeah.
Well done, Disney. But I will say that Strange New Worlds hasn't fallen into that problem, right? Like, I mean, because even though we know what's going to happen to Pike, even they're actually tackling that. They're meeting it head on,
Right.
and talking about what's going to happen down the road, which I think is a really good tact to take, if that makes any sense.
But it's 10 years, right? So.
But they've made it interesting and they've made it new in a way that I think Star Wars is struggling with right now.
Yeah, Star Wars to me.
Why are you laughing at me?
I guess people could say this
But
about.
they made it interesting. Like,
People can say this about Star Trek, maybe, but Star Wars to me is just kind of the same thing over and over again. Like none of these species really mean anything. Nothing really means anything in Star Wars. It's just like they just go to a planet and have some fights, and then fly around and have some fights, and then that's it.
And then meet the Death Star again.
Yeah.
well, what do you
Again.
so when you say they none of these planets mean anything, none of these, I'm assuming you mean these species. So what do you mean by that? Let's explore.
Well, I think Star Wars is more ironed out. If you just want to take the Alpha Quadrant and the Beta Quadrant, you can talk about the Klingons and their history, and the Romulans and the Vulcans and how they're related, and the Cardassians, and you could even talk about different species that aren't in the Federation that are just around. But like Star Wars, just kind of they just throw some species at you. Some of them have some story. The Wookiees have some story, but a lot of them doesn't seem like they have a whole lot of, story. I don't know.
Okay.
That makes
So
sense.
so what you're saying is in some of Star Trek, in some, not all, but in some of Star Trek, some of these some of the species that we come to know, their species is not fully developed.
Right. And
Right.
I don't necessarily think that I'm not saying this is a dig against Star Wars, because I think Star Wars is very different in its goals and what it wants to do as a franchise, right? It wants to tell a very, very different type of story, and that's great. I am actually a big Star Wars fan as well. But it does sort of feel like they're wrestling with, where do we go from here?
We've
And I
got
don't
this
think they're-
huge audience, and we have a way of making money. Let's make more. What can we do?
Right. But like the question becomes like, how often are we going to rehash like the same characters, and how often does are we going to tap into these identical characters?
Well, y'all didn't like Jar Jar Banks, so they could.
No. Well, Marvel is kind of doing the same thing, but it's also owned by Disney. They're kind of throwing as much at you as possible and just taking any character they can and making a show or a movie out of it. So Marvel,
But what's interesting about that is they've made it different enough. Like, for example, I was never a big fan of Moon Knight. Like, I never followed that title, but I knew enough going into it to recognize that there were set differences. I gotta tell you, like, I loved the Moon Knight show. Like, I thought that was fantastic.
Really?
And
I stopped at episode 1. I couldn't do it.
I
you gotta get past it. Like, you really gotta get past it.
I will say that Marvel has a better job of setting different tones for different things. They even just the movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, just coming on was just, let's just theme this with 80s music and have a good time sort of deal.
Right?
I love it.
They've done a good job with the themes and the mood that they have given each, even TV show. With their Star Wars, the mood is the same every single time. I guess you could say that about Star Trek too, in a way.
What's so great about Marvel is they have, similar to Star Trek, they have decades of just writing these short little comics. You know what I'm saying? And they can build on that, and it turns out into these great movies. Whereas Star Wars was really like a movie here or there, and now they're trying to capitalize off of the market that they have.
Yeah.
I want you to understand, Marco, we're not hating on Star Wars. We're just pointing out that this is a different phenomenon. Calm down.
So this is, she's hard. So all right, Brownhill, you attack Star Wars. The friendship was nice.
I will say this, though.
The friendship can commence. I love it.
I will say this. I never looked at Star Wars as a science fiction show.
I would actually argue that Star Trek isn't either.
No, I think Star Trek definitely is. I mean, why would you argue that it isn't?
Because Star Trek's interest is not actually, at least it wasn't initially. I think we've gotten a lot of more interesting scientific development in more recent Trek than we certainly did before. While technobabble exists, like the technobabble didn't necessarily, like, it made sense in context, in story, but it didn't necessarily make sense in terms of science, right? Like, I mean, warp engines, dilithium, all of this other jazz. Compare this with something that's a hard sci-fi show, like, say, The Expanse, where there's been a lot of attention paid to physics. There's been a lot of attention paid to resource management, making sure that basically everything lines up. Star Trek, the technology is almost interchangeable with magic, because it's not the important part.
First of
right?
all,
like the UT guys, like the UT is fucking magic. Like, that's not a thing we can do. Like, it's just not a thing. Um,
I don't know. Universal
Jason,
Studios
Jason with the
Entertainment.
last comment. Jason with the last comment.
Well, I'm just gonna say that I think the UT maybe first of all, any technology that's sufficiently advanced is like
indistinguishable from magic.
So let's just say that. But they are very smart about it. Like they put things like Heisenberg commutators and shit just to make it work, which is a pretty awesome way to make something work. When Heisenberg's theory is that it can't work.
Yeah.
So they do add the science into the magic as much as possible. I just think Star Wars doesn't care about the science at all. I think Star Trek at least makes an attempt. And you can't compare it to The Expanse because The Expanse is not interstellar.
Except it is.
It's interplanetary.
It's also interstellar because they've opened up the ring gates now.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
They don't have warp drive and stuff like that. So that's what it is.
All right, so Jason,
next episode. That's
okay.
Yeah, no, like we're gonna have to take this to Tech Trek. Manny, you need to watch this episode
Right.
and get with us.
Well, it's been fun, y'all. It has really, really been fun. Trashing this particular episode, Marie was on fire, as the comments stated.
She loved it.
Jason, as always, thank you so very much for joining us. As always, y'all. Oh, you know what? I haven't said this in a long time. Make certain that you like, subscribe, comment on any and all of our platforms. We really love it. Thank you all so very much for watching. Peace.
Bye.
Now, again, I'm going to say this again because we're near the end of our show. If you are our allies, we are not talking to you. We are not talking to you. This does not... Okay? We're not talking to you. Stop trying to take our and make it your goddamn business. It ain't got nothing to do with you. It ain't got nothing to do with you.
Our experience of grief independently.
Bruh.
Yes.
I love that they're in the comments.
So much is like I'm just reading the comments.
Yeah. They should brought their child out. It's such a good point, Will. God, that's such a good point. And he's really thought about it too. You should be here. William, get over here.
I thought he had a girlfriend on Insta. It's been ages since I've mucked about, but
Okay, moving on. Let's move on.
we gotta move on.